Hey Troy,
Hey, Matt. Hey, Mike, what's going on?
how are you?
Good, sir.
Good.
You actually clean off your desk for me?
I did. Got the whole. It's actually fake behind me.
Yeah, I like that. I have a light that decided where the switch decided to blow out like over the weekend, and I still haven't replaced the switch yet. So I have no fan and no light behind me. So actually, you guys get to see me. So
You get
everything
the
is
natural light.
au natural. Yes, exactly. So, Matt, how are you doing, sir? If he's on. Mike, how many more people do you have any idea that we're planning on dropping on?
I don't. I know Darlene Ollie was on, and then she popped off like literally
Okay.
right before you came on.
Okay. All right, we'll give it one more minute or so and then we'll get rolling.
Sounds good.
Did Jill tell you to end up making sure I did my due diligence and that I didn't flake out on you guys since she was flaking out on us with her call or with her flight?
Right.
So,
There we go. Some more people popping on.
hello, Jordan. Hey, Sweather.
You can probably start whenever you're ready, Troy.
Yeah, it's fine. All right. Hey, folks. Troy Bratz. I am have only been ever licensed with Keller Williams Elevate, Greater Cleveland Southwest originally, back in 2016. I am rolling right around 30 formally listed transactions every single year, or transaction size, I should say, every single year. Part of my background is, if anybody reads my bio, I've been in real estate to some capacity in the industry since 2002, where I ended up starting, actually, I used to work in Congress in DC, where I ended up being put on to working with HUD and doing HUD related policy. So my initial background started there and doing basically research papers with them back in the early 2000s. Worked for them for a couple of years, and then I transitioned to working directly with HUD. Ended up becoming a assistant director for a housing authority out of Northeast Ohio, specifically Parma Public Housing, which is one of the two housing authorities in Cuyahoga County. You have CMHA, which everybody is aware of, and Parma Public Housing, which is about a tenth of the size, I'd say, roughly, of CMHA. We only had one public housing facility, but we had approximately going on 2,000 vouchers that we ended up working with on a regular basis. That transitioned into me working, spent a lot of time lobbying DC, got me well versed with some people doing affordable housing development in Northeast Ohio, and actually in the Midwest. I left that position in 2015 and created my own consulting firm that does both property management as well as affordable housing development, basically teaching general contractors how to become developers, and how to finance those type of transactions. So that carried me through once my wife and I started having our family, that I wanted to be more planted back here in Northeast Ohio, and I ended up starting doing real estate when we created a property management company based out of Keller Williams Elevate. So that's my full circle, bring me back to Northeast Ohio. With that said, like I said previously, I'm about 30 sides transactions wise annually. That's about anywhere between 8 to 9 million for me. I am 100% solo agent. So, but the one thing I've been very successful and very grateful with is that I have a very big team of people that I work with. I end up working with, I have a specific photographer, I have a specific stager, I have a specific cleaning crew. I actually have 2 different groups of stagers, but they both work in tandem very well together. I have 3 different groups of cleaners, and I have effectively 3 different photographers, but 2 of those 3 photographers worked for the same company. So I have those people, and then I have a few nuanced people that are focused on strictly doing, if I have a land deal that comes up, strictly just end up doing drone photography and stuff along that line. And then somebody's very I have some good connections with regards to Medina County, Cuyahoga County specifically, also some decent contacts in Lorain County with regards to getting a lot of the parcel data and getting to nitty gritty stuff that I don't have to end up spending a ton of time after my kids go to bed figuring that stuff out. So, that all said, about 40 to 50% of my transactions every single year are listings. Everything else is buyers. And then going into the meat of basically our conversation today is where my lead sources come from, how I utilize social media to get into those. If you have any questions over the course of this, feel free to stop me or feel free to unmute yourself and ask along. This will be pretty free flowing. Mike's here just to make sure that we hit all the high points that we want to. And if he has anything, or if anybody has anything to add, feel free to let me know. Top 3 lead sources primarily is everybody should be there. Sorry, I didn't turn off my phone. My sphere of influence. I've spent since 2006, I've been in the CrossFit community of Northeast Ohio and regionally, where I have been a coach since 2009, athlete since 2006. I end up usually having somewhere in the ballpark of 5 to 10 transactions a year that come out of that community. So that is a third almost of my business is strictly there. So I get a big from that. Think of it, CrossFit's depending upon what gym you are with, you're spending anywhere from 150 to $200+ a month on your membership. And when you end up, you're in those are people typically that are young professionals that are just getting established in their careers. They're looking for community, they're looking for people to end up meeting with. So that has been a great spot for me to end up networking with and connecting with people both during gym hours and then outside of. So
how would you say that you make that connection from, sure. You have this thing in common, you're obviously at a CrossFit gym together. Mm-hmm. How do you walk us through from, that, how you get them all the way to, buying a house?
So a lot of our side conversation in the first 5 minutes, 5 minutes leading into the class hour is just people just BSing about life. So a lot of that is right there. I did ask, I am not an owner, but I've known the owners for over 13 and 14 years respectively right now of the gym that I work at. And they end up, we allow people to end up sort of not market, but we allow them to drop business cards at the space. We have a wall that's for that purpose. We end up inviting people that are active members in our gym to we give them the opportunity to sort of like have those side conversations with, as long as they're not disrupting our classes. So a lot of that gets fed back to me as in that communication, but also we end up putting on socials almost on the monthly. Like we're doing a bike to the ballpark with our entire membership. So those conversations that happen on the side during those. So I'll do that, or as part of the gym, if the gym lets, allows us, and I end up clearing this with the gym pretty much every single time we do an event. I'll sponsor one of the stops. So we're doing the bike to the ballpark. I'm sponsoring everybody's first drink at Nano Brew when we end up hitting that bar. And it's basically, we've already talked to Nano Brew. They're going to have a flyer that's just going to say sponsored by your favorite coach and also realtor Troy Bratz, and go from there. So we end up going through those type of conversations. Majority of people at this point, though, at the gym that have been there more than a year know that what my career is outside of. And through those conversations, we know what everybody else's careers are outside of that, for at least to a good percentage, at least what the industry is. So one of my, I try to end up connecting also people if I can all the time. And so if I have somebody in Lakewood specifically that my cleaners are a little bit tied up, but I know somebody else is trying to get into real estate or trying to get into the industry, I try to formally say, hey, this person also comes to 6 a.m. class, show up at this time, and chat with them on the side. So I have those conversations, and then that comes back, hopefully in droves for me. I don't know if there's anything more on that, but second lead source, primarily I get from networking. So what I end up doing is currently I am just been elected the chairman for the board for Lakewood's Chamber of Commerce. I've been a member of the chamber for about 8 years. I've been formally on the board of directors since 2019. And I'm just in my second 3-year term now. So I am that. We end up having over 600 members of our chamber. So I sponsor every single side event that we end up having. So either I sponsor a table, which ends up being usually as cheap as like $50 or $75 for an event. And goes all the way up to, I think the highest event I've sponsored has been about $175, I think, for a single event. But what I end up doing is, like, next week, 2 weeks from tomorrow, I have the new teachers luncheon. Almost every single school district throughout Northeast Ohio and probably Ohio, about a week before the school's year starts, they end up doing a luncheon, inviting all the new teachers that are coming into the district for that year, or ones that are transitioning out. Usually a lot of times they'll invite the retiring teachers to that luncheon, but I end up sponsoring a table for that. It gives me an opportunity to talk with anybody before they come to that event, and then also, or before the luncheon actually begins, and also it gives me an opportunity to speak during the event. So that for instance is one thing I started doing well before I ever was on the board for the Chamber of Commerce. So I actually enjoy that. I probably actually get at least 1 or 2 buyers every single year just from that event. I typically do not pick up any sellers from that, but that's people because they're just relocating Northeast Ohio. Between that networking with Chamber of Commerce, I'm also a member of Plexus, which is the LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce and ally for Northeast Ohio. They actually are based out of Cleveland and Akron-based divisions. So I end up going, we just had a huge party that are summer soiree that happened this past Friday. I sponsored some of it. I was there for all of about 20 minutes of it because I had another event to go to, but I end up trying to be present. So on Fridays, we end up first and third Fridays of Plexus, they end up doing just a call-in, check-in with all their members, Zoom style, from 9 to 10 a.m. or 8 to 10 a.m., 8 to 9 a.m. Sorry. We are able to end up utilizing that opportunity to speak with people. We always have 2 or 3 new people that show up on those. So I end up getting my first take into having that conversation with them and introducing myself. That is a couple of others. I'm also members of Berea's Chamber, Rocky River's Chamber, and Parma's Chamber. So I try to end up utilizing the Chambers of Commerce because that's where I'm going to end up being able to know when somebody has a new employee joining their company that's relocating into town. I'll be able to end up having that conversation and ideally have that lead. So there is a collaborative chambers also for Northeast Ohio that is a member of I'm gonna get this number wrong, but I want to say it's 16 or 17 chambers where they do Zoom meetings once or twice a month. So Collaborative Chambers, Northeast Ohio. It's a free to go, as long as you're a member of any of the chambers that are part of that, you're invited to come to their Zoom networking events. So those have been all successful bases for me. Excuse me. So the final last thing has been really I end up I go around and I utilize my buyers. So I'm going to be doing another class on the 22nd, but basically it's going to revolve around this. So what I end up doing is everybody has buyers right now that are having a challenge with regards to finding themselves houses. So after we're usually searching for a couple weeks, if my clients are not finding anything that they're really end up wanting to write on, or if they have not won on a lot of those, I track down, I have a listing. I don't have it in this room. It's actually in the other one. But it's a board with each of my clients and what houses have we looked at and what houses have they written on. So basically I have every address that we've ever looked at the house. I said X, and if I can, I have it in a spreadsheet actually, that is probably the easier way to share it. But what we end up doing is say the address, this is why my clients didn't want it. So one, it reminds me of where my clients are with regards to their houses. And then secondly, it also ends up shows me the neighborhood that they're looking at. So if they're looking at a ton of houses in the same block or two, I know that this is likely, if another house pops up in this neighborhood, they're likely to end up being very interested into at least seeing it, if not also offering on it. So fast forwarding ahead, assuming no houses are coming on the market, I take that information and I pick out, I will go to the MLS. I pick out, say they're looking at a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. I will look for every 4-bedroom, 2-bath house that is in the records of the MLS that has not sold in the last year. Every single house that falls into that geographic area. So if it's one street, I live on Mars and Lakewood. If I'm looking on Mars and Lakewood, I might pull every 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in Mars and Lakewood, and send I have a postcard that's a basically a golden letter store style postcard that I utilize. Say, hey, I have Anna and Nick that are looking for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. They are currently renters in the area. They have a budget up to $350,000 or $400,000, whatever that number is. They're looking for a house. They can end up, their lease is up at the end of September. They would love to end up getting into a house. Your house looks like something they would be interested in. And I don't tell them that, hey, I looked at this on the MLS, anything else. Do you know anybody that, and actually I steer towards, do you know anybody that would live and that is interested in? It's only going to 4-bedroom, 2-bath houses, right? So I said, hey, I'm not end up sending it to 3-bedroom, not sending it to 2-bedroom, not sending it to 6-bedroom houses. I'm sending it specifically to the house that my clients want. So I know if I'm getting a response off those postcards, then I have a good chance of this house being likely. And then I end up going with the conversation of, if my clients don't want it, or if they give the opportunity to my clients to see it, one, great. If we can end up negotiating a deal there, that's effectively off market, that I'm able to end up doing a deal for my clients to end up getting into a house without being in a competitive environment for the buyer side. On the second side, my clients aren't interested in it. Now I know these clients are at least willing to have the conversation about selling the house. So that may become a listing for me down the road, if not immediately. So that's twofold. I can utilize my buyer's interest in order to build my pool of farming for my farming. Then also I get that conversation going, and I can start putting those people into my CRM and into Command, and start feeding those people more regular communications, right, and more touches. So those have been really my 3 big areas that I focused on. And the postcards, because I didn't want to spend money in my early years, I didn't do it. So a lot of it was me door knocking. I would do a block or 2 blocks at a time, and just say, hey, I got this. I basically had one. I I actually had in a couple instances, I had a picture of like the wedding picture of a couple. Or I had the picture of, or I had literally just the stats card on like an index card that talked about what the clients, who my clients were. And I had that basically sort of that same pitch. So it's like, hey, I got Anna and Nick here. They have a budget up to $350,000. They're really looking for a house. And I already had on my list, and the houses I'm walking to fit that criteria, or a majority of the houses hit that criteria. Now with me doing postcards, one, because I'm spending money, and two, I'm trying to end up being a little bit more direct on who I'm contacting, because I know if they're contacting me back that they already fit into one of my buyers' criteria. Now, if my buyer's already bought a house, great. I just end up having that conversation with them, say, hey, I'm like, thank you very much for reaching out to me. I'm sure Nick and Anna would have loved this house. However, they were lucky enough to find another house already they're under contract on. However, if you're still interested, I have other buyers that would be love to end up having the opportunity to see this house today. Can we have a sit down? So we would end up scheduling that out. So I know I jumped around a little bit there. I apologize. Any questions out there on those things?
I think Nicole has a question, but Nicole, we can't hear you.
Nope. Fix your audio settings. Rose, did you have a question? Rosalia?
No, thank you. No.
Okay. Nicole, what you got?
Obviously, you do a lot of networking. No, Nicole, unfortunately. If you want to put your question in the chat, I can ask it for you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you do a lot of networking. So like, what do you do, when you meet somebody? Are you putting them in your database? How does it work? What's your process look like with that?
So my process has been all over the place, which I'll be 100%. Mike will completely off the record one. Since this is being recorded, it'll be off the record. He would chide me for this, but I am terrible about putting things in the CRM until I'm about to get paid for a deal. So which I'm sure I'm not in the minority on that, but I try to end up getting them in there. I do end up trying to be very specific about any contacts. So I have a few clients that their parents were very involved in their transaction for the parents of the buyer. So the buyer is, 22-year-old kid that just ended up being successful from 18 to 22, has money to buy a house. His parents were very involved in the transaction. His parents live in Independence. He bought a house in Broadview Heights. I built them into my CRM because one, they have about a $500,000 house currently. That's where we actually did the signing for him to purchase his house, and that's how I learned that. And then two, I have that opportunity to create that relationship and touch base with them moving forward. So the mother is overly involved with the son's life. So it allowed me to end up having that good connection. They actually are just going to have he's going to have his 1 year, anniversary of being in the house next week. So what I end up doing on their 1 year is I end up actually going on line, and I end up getting the picture of their house from the photo of the house and the condition it looked like when they purchased it. I take that and I have a digital rendering done of that. Usually either depending upon how the house looks, because certain houses show up better than others. I end up doing either a architectural sort of blueprint style drawing, or more of a cartoonesque, I guess is the other way rendering of it. But we end up doing that. It talks about the family's last name, typically, the date of purchase, established date, and then I have a circle emblem. Think of it old wax seal style circular stamp that I have in the bottom corner that says Troy Bratz, Keller Williams, and then on the back, I have a sticker that I throw on it that just ends up having all my contact information. So it's on the back of the information. I have it framed. It's usually $60. It costs me with the frame. I can get it for about 35 without the frame. But I do that on their 1-year anniversary once they buy a house. So I do other small stuff when we first close on the house, but that's sort of like my big time for them to end up also asking them for a secondary referral at that time. Referral or a secondary review. Hey, you've been here for a year. How's that going for you? And like, how's the house? What do you love about the house? What have you been able to do because you've been able to purchase this house? Those type of little tidbits have been super impactful. And I actually just started doing it on the 1 year about 6 months ago. So I used to end up doing it within 2 weeks of them closing. If I couldn't get it to them on closing, it would take me an extra week because I had a different supplier at the time, and that company, that husband and wife team, took a little bit longer. But it is a great little treat to give to your clients. And again, it's a secondary marketing because all my contact information is on it, so I can write that off at the end of the year. And so
Sure. Nicole had a couple questions in the chat. When going through expireds and they never answer, return your call, do you or would you ever just go to their house to get in front of them?
Usually, so Nicole, I'm like, you may know, some people know I'm a little bit more forward. So yes, I will go to their house, but I usually have something ready. So I usually say, hey, knocked on the door. I wanted to hand this to you because I don't have a stamp on it. I want to end up giving this to you. Say, hey, I'm like, I just wanted to end up, I reached out to you a couple of times. I was in the neighborhood. I want to end up in, I had this in my car to mail it to you. I just didn't get around to it. Basically, are you can you tell me, sir, why your house didn't sell before? Like asking that question. I'm like, hey, I'm like, I noticed your house was on the market. What happened? That type of generic questioning. And as long as you open it up immediately for them to talk and you're not just spewing the facts of the market at them, more than likely they're going to tell you why it didn't sell. I don't have a ton of expireds and withdrawns that I've listed. But it's sort of the nature of what the market has been for the last 3 years. I have with the exception of condos, all my listings have sold in under 6 days in the last 3 years, every single one of them. So the only time that's tracks of not being that has been if it fell through on due to inspections or due to a buyer's inability to get financing. That when I had to put it back on the market, that's when you eat up some days. But I've only had a couple of those happen altogether in the last 3-4 years. So other question, does that answer your question, Nicole, on that first part? Okay. Would you recommend newer agents joining Chamber of Commerce with not having lots of experience yet? Any networking that you can get in on, especially things that are in your wheelhouse that you're interested in. If you're interested in going to it for what the entity is and what they have, whether it's a CrossFit gym like me, and like where I initially started, whether it's I used to be a very active member of the Cleveland Council of World Affairs, which is basically an offshoot of the Foreign Relations Council, because my undergrad was in international relations in poli-sci. So I used to run a young professionals group with them, and I ended up going to a ton of events. I was way over my head though with a lot of the people that go to those events. Everybody were our grandparents' age, or my grandparents' age at the very least. I don't know how young everybody is on this call, but so I was like a 20-something-year-old kid, 30-year-old something guy that didn't have any kids yet, and I only had a few years of experience as a public housing person or as a consultant with regards to political campaigns and stuff like that, which is what I did prior to working in DC. like I carried myself well and I can communicate well, but I was definitely over my head with regards to who I was speaking with in those situations. Now in today's world, I'm very likely to join back as a general, like individual member of those, and I feel more well established. But again, go into things that you're interested in, because you're not going to end up wanting to go to the things that you've paid for a membership dues for if you have no interest in going, and it's strictly only a networking aspect. Always go to things and always join things that you have a personal connection to, whether that's a personal interest, personal hobby, or the things. Also, try to do things that are in your region, in your area that you're willing to travel to. Because if you join something that's a national organization, you're not going to end up getting a ton of clientele from that, unless there's a very small niche that ends up being very focused in Northeast Ohio and where you want to work.
I think also too, Troy, like, I don't know if you've ever been in a BNI group or anything like that.
Yeah.
They have the term givers gain. And I think no matter what networking group that you're a part of, making connections and connecting people that you know with people that they want to know. Being an agent's all about being a connector and building your network that way. And you can be invaluable to those people just by simply making connections. And then ultimately, by you giving and making connections, you will gain in the future.
Yeah, I fully agree. I agree with that. The only sort of thing to be aware of is BNIs are started by one of three individuals: a banker, or a lender, a realtor, or an insurance agent.
100%.
There's those three businesses that you will see, or a financial advisor slash might be the other one. You're only going to see one of those four people that are probably starting, and usually you're going to also have a title person in there that's pretty aggressive in there, do their networking. Those five entities are going to start new chapters. So if you can find one that's not already part of the BNI that wants to start a chapter, that would be the way I would go about it and try to start a new chapter. BNIs are $700-ish a year. You can end up, as long as, if that's not a stopping point financially for you, then I would end up doing that. I was a member, I was actually president before I left the chapter, but I was a member of a BNI for about 3.5 years. But I joined less than 6 months before COVID started. And it was, we had two factions that didn't work together, and we actually split our group between two different other chapters. We sort of placed our people out, so that it was a weird situation, but that's sort of what happened with our chapter previously.
Yeah, it certainly has its place, and I'm just kind of talking like about networking, in general, like that philosophy of givers gain. I think, because I was also in a BNI group in the past, and I think, if you take that mentality to other networking groups that you're a part of, I think, you really can make inroads. I don't know if Nicole just has another question. If you started your real estate career over, what's one thing you would do differently? I like that question.
It's a great question. And something that is probably one of those things I should actually put a little bit more thought behind. Probably not being scared to put yourself out there and trying to really, you fall back on everybody else. So I think one of my big concerns, I never has been on a team. I've always been a solo agent, always. And one of the things I could see is there is a argument to be had to learning the business from somebody that's been in the business for a long time. I'm also, because I join chambers and I join these network events, so I can end up being somebody that can guide people. I've always been that type of personality. But at the same time, I've been terribly fearful in my life about starting teams, starting a business, and being responsible for somebody else. Like I like having 100% on me. I had my own fear of hiring people, even starting an LLC. It took me 3 years to get an LLC together. When I had a concept, when I had a business that I was actually running, and I was very like, I could have gotten, I could have been, sued or something of that nature, I ran that risk by running that business. So doing what I can to protect myself, and then trying to establish myself in understanding what I need to do for the business. So if that means joining a team and having those conversations, you can do that. I am very, very, very involved with every single one of my transactions. I've had that sort of not fear, I guess, just that reluctance to release my transactions onto other people within my sphere. So I am at every single one of my stagings. I am at photography sessions. I am I show up to let in, and I show up to walk away from my cleaners when they are done with their cleaning. They know to call me when they're 30 minutes out. They know to call me 30 minutes before they're going to be done. I'm very involved, and that's so all the clients, especially the ones that have owned a house for 30 years plus, that have never or possibly they built that house. I just had a client in Independence. They had never lived in a used house before, if you want to call it a resale house. They've only built their house. So in 87, they built the house. They sold it just a couple weeks ago, and they went into a house that was only a year old. So that was a very different business for them. I set them up with some movers. I set them up with guys that were able to or just move things from the basement because the husband is not physically able to move it from the basement to the garage to get it ready for the movers, because it was just a situation of how the move was going and how we were staging things. We needed to do things up front. So there's a lot of different nuances that happen with every single transaction. I try to end up taking as much on myself, so I don't have to make your clients feel like the world is caving in on them, which a lot of them will end up feeling like they don't know what direction they're going for and what day of the week it is when they're getting ready for listings. So a lot of it has been me and I know we're sort of like going circle, but as far as changing, like bringing more people on and taking a little more risks earlier in my career is probably what I would have, to paraphrase where I was going with all that. So taking those on, probably finding a transaction coordinator a whole lot earlier than I did in my career. Trying to find somebody that would be a buyer's agent a whole lot earlier. Nicole, I know you have 2 boys. I think it's 2 boys. Like I have 2 girls, and you know, I have my own personal regrets about how much time I'm able to spend with them, even though I work from home. My wife has been phenomenal, and she works from home also, so she's able to end up doing that. But for everybody else also on the call, like trying to end up finding ways to leverage in order to save yourself some time, and whether that's to find more business or to find more free time for you and your family, or you and whatever your own personal hobbies are. Those would be my big takeaways.
Troy, I think one final thought I have, and you didn't bring this up, is Troy utilizes a service called Keeping Current Matters.
Oh yeah.
So he does a great job with his social media and his emails. So I'm on both of your lists.
Mm-hmm.
So check out Keeping Current Matters. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Troy, or any of the value that.
Yeah. So I've been a little bit, I have not been great at doing the videos that they give you an opportunity to give you sort of scripting, to do your own videos. And I've not been great on utilizing that. I fully intend on doing that better, especially as we get in the warmer months or cooler months, moving forward. And I have a little bit less outdoor responsibilities with my kids. So, but with that, that all said, Keeping Current Matters gives you factoids. Typically it's on the weekly, but they do great high points of communications, and you can take everything they have is PowerPoints. You can pull it off. A lot of that stuff you can end up manipulating it so it's in the Keller Williams colors versus what are they, powder blue and white or something like that as their base colors. You can end up pulling a lot of that stuff so it works for you. you can take out individual pages, drop it into your listing presentations or your buyer presentations to really give some confidence to both yourself and to your clients moving forward. So I end up sending out, I get weekly both Facebook posts, or I'm sorry, Facebook, social media. I think it goes to Twitter, and I think it also goes to Instagram. And then I also have some that are pushed out to LinkedIn. So I end up doing that. One of my goals also this year will be to dive in a little bit more to my LinkedIn page. So, but with that said, doing the creeping current matters, being out there and trying to be a voice of reason and also a calming voice is critical right now. So a lot of people are freaking out. That's why we don't see a ton of listings happening. And the listings that are still happening is people that are, unfortunately, the listings that I'm seeing, as I'm seeing a lot of this list for freedom or list at freedom or whatever it is, and some of these other discount brokerages. And it's just people throwing their house up. They're throwing it up for values that are not realistic in the market. And they need to end up really understanding where the market is that their house is based out of. So those are a couple of quick takeaways. There's one other high point that you talked about, Mike, with regards to keeping current matters. Now I forgot where I was going to go with that. But the videos is actually really good. Rich Ganem actually does a great job from our brokerage in utilizing those. He does end up, I don't know if he's doing them as much as he used to, but he used to do a lot of those. And because I would see the talking points on my end, and then I would hear him do his little thing on social media, on the reels or whatever it was. And he would end up, it would basically be a verbatim read. So it makes it easier for you.
I think it helps because, being someone who's looked at by the general public in your sphere, in your database as a resource, being the local economist of choice is huge in order to grow your business.
Yeah.
So, Troy, thank you very much for hopping on. If anybody doesn't have any final questions, we'll go ahead and get out of here.
All right. Oh, one last thing, guys. If anybody knows anybody in Lakewood that it has a small business, please let me know, connect me. We have a great onboarding program and for the chamber. And then on top of that, we end up, we're going to starting in the fourth quarter of this year, we will end up start having grants for people to join if they're super green on joining members. They have to either have an address for their business or the address for their home in the city for them to qualify for it, but it'll be basically a 50% discount for their membership dues on an annual basis. So let me know if you know of anybody. We'd love to end up doing a ribbon cutting for them. So if it's in Lakewood, Rocky River, and you can talk to me about the other chambers. I'm not as heavily involved in them other than going to their social events. So to be 100% honest. So, but yeah, let me know if there's anything else. Mike, thanks for throwing out my email address. If you guys need to reach me, my phone number is 216-702-2196. And then other than that, I will see you guys next week at our team meeting out in Brecksville.
Awesome. Thanks, Troy.
Cool, yes. Yep.
Have a great day, everybody.